What's up, guys? Thanks for coming back for another episode of Two Car Garage. Big one this time. Remember, we're working on our 2005 Honda VTX 1800 behind me. It's the F model, so it's like the sportier version and stuff with the digital tack and lots of chrome. In the last episode, if you missed it, be sure to go back and watch it because it's a pretty satisfying one. We polished the entire bike, tons of chrome from the factory, and tons of 3M adhesive tape-on chrome covers as well from the previous owner. But for what it's worth, it's all shiny and looking good now. So we've got a big episode now because we're about to put a battery in it and try to start it for the first time in probably 10 or 15 years. So pretty crazy. If you've been following along this whole time, you know that the biggest problem with the bike was the fuel system. It sat with a full tank of gas in it pretty much for 10 or 15 years. So because of that, the entire inside of the tank, the lines, the fuel pump was completely roached. So we had to clean everything out, replace the fuel pump, but it should be good to go now. So like I said, we're gonna put a battery in it, turn the key, make sure it primes, and then see if it starts. All right, let's turn the key on and see if the fuel pump primes. We should hear the slow whine of it. I'll be nice and quiet. Let's cross our fingers. There you go. Did you hear that? Great. So the fuel pump primes. There's oil in it. Let's see if it cranks. Okay, so what you heard was it continue to crank and crank and crank. So the starter solenoid must be sticking, which is no bueno because we don't want it to burn itself out. A lot of times, if it sticks like that, the little contact inside the solenoid can like melt to the one side and then it's permanent. So let's find out where that solenoid is. We should be able to just give it a few taps and then that should fix it. Okay, the starter solenoid is right down here on this side. So we'll hook up the battery again, crank it, and then if it sticks again, we'll just give it a couple little taparoonies with this hammer, screwdriver. There you go, fixed. All right, let's make sure now. Okay, so that fixed it, but normally you have to hit it like once and then it should clear it, but it's still sticking. So I might need to replace it. But it won't stop us from starting it now because if it continues to try to go after the bike starts, we'll just knock it. So we can still try to start it now. Let's do it. Okay, we've got a auxiliary fuel tank hooked up. The return line is blocked off. It's kind of blocked off, kind of dripping, but it'll do the job for now. So the only thing left to do is try to start it and see if this pig runs. me just prime the fuel pump a couple times. Make sure fuel gets all the way up to the injectors. So close. Hey, can you believe it? It actually starts. Man, that was a good sound when it crackled and popped to life. It has a pretty good rumble to it with the Vance & Hines long shots and the intake. I can always adjust the idle later. It's pretty cold out too. It's hovering around or maybe a couple degrees below freezing right now. So it's not too surprising that it ran a little bit rough right in the beginning, but then that idle smoothed right out and it idled great and it responded great with a little twist of the throttle. So I am really, really happy with it. Well, now that we know the bike actually runs, and I have no doubt that it shifts and stops and everything like that, the last thing that I'd like to do before we actually button this thing back up is polish all the painted parts. So we have the tank, the side covers, the front and rear fender, which are on the bike still, of course. I'd like to go over those with just some polish on a wheel, make sure that they're nice. The bike has pretty low miles. It was stored inside, but there is a lot of dust on it and stuff. And after spending all that time on the chrome, it's nice to make the paint look as good as it can too. So let's hit that paint now. Whenever I put tanks back on a new bike, I always like to put a little silicone on the tank bushings here, just to make it slide on and off easier next time, or easier on the next guy. Our VTX 1800 is all back together. Let's turn it on and make sure that the dash works. And maybe we'll try to start it again too, just to make sure everything's good. What? Come here, look. Here's the digital dash. Look at the mileage. 4,600. This bike has only got 4,600 miles on it. I actually never turned it on before, so I had no idea how many miles it had. I, for some reason, had in my mind like 15,000 or something. So our 2005 VTX has 4,600 miles on it. That is it. This thing is like a brand new motorcycle. Holy cow. Let's start it up. All right, I'm as happy as a peach in summertime. Well, man, is it done? I don't know. Maybe? Is it that easy? It is not quite done yet because, as I said, we have to put some of the final polish on. So we will polish all the paint with this and then make sure everything's buttoned up. Well, I've waited until the very end to put the very last piece of chrome on. It is the coolant reservoir tank. Pop it on. Let's see how the bike looks put all back together. There you go, right? I mean, the bike idles great, it starts great. That starter solenoid issue where it seemed to be sticking, it wasn't anymore once it actually started. So I don't know if it's in the electronics somewhere where it just keeps trying and trying. But either way, I started it and turned it off a bunch of times, never had the problem again. So I think we're okay with that. It's all back together. The coolant is topped off, bled and sealed up. The only thing left to do is ride it, right? Which I'm really looking forward to just because this thing's such a pig. But it is like 31 degrees outside right now, so it's a bit too saucy for me. So I think we're both going to have to wait until the next episode to ride it for the very first time. Thanks for sticking around until the end, guys. Be sure you tune in next week when we take this out on its first ride. Hopefully, fingers crossed. As always, please subscribe, comment, and like down below. I'm up to over 200 subscribers right now. I guess for giant channels, right, where they're like getting subscribers all the time, 200 may not seem like a lot. But for me, like thinking to myself that 200 people saw my channel and then clicked subscribe because they liked it, like 200's a lot, right? I'm actually kind of surprised that I even have 200. So thank you guys very much for your support, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.